secret you keep, the one even you don't understand. This volume holds its true name. Welcome to LibCurio, Library of Curiosity. Shush, please keep silent. And now the next chapter begins.
The faucet drips every 12 seconds. A quiet rhythm like a clock that doesn't count time but erodes it. You sit in the dim kitchen light, surrounded by the familiar, the chipped mug, the hum of the fridge, the chair that leans slightly to the left. Nothing has changed, and yet something aches. Like the room remembers a version of you that you've forgotten. You lift the mug. The tea is cold. The air smells faintly of burnt toast and something older, something like loss. And then it happens again. That flicker, that small electric moment where the thought arrives before you think it. You reach to scratch your neck and realize your hand was already there. You say something to a friend and half a second later wonder, did I choose those words? Or did they just appear? It's subtle, almost nothing, but it keeps happening. Like the universe is lagging, like you are lagging. Like there's a hidden script running under your skin, and you only see the ink after the line has already been spoken. So let me ask you something you were never meant to ask. What if the you that makes choices doesn't really exist? What if every decision, every path you think you picked, every fork you claim to have weighed and turned and agonized over was never a choice at all? What if it was all playback? A recording of something already decided. Picture it, a machine that prints the story of your life, line by line, decision by decision. And your only role is to read it after it's been written. You sit there now, remembering moments when you thought you were in control, but now they feel staged. Chosen for you. Not in the grand conspiracy sense, not puppet strings or hidden gods, but something stranger, something quieter. Like the river doesn't ask why it flows downhill. And here's the crack in the glass. The moment you start to feel it, the moment you catch yourself not choosing, something ancient stirs. A discomfort, a vertigo, because if you are not the one deciding, then what are you? And who or what is choosing? The tea is still cold. The faucet still drips. You reach to take another sip. And before the warmth touches your lips, a voice yours, but not quite asks, did you decide to lift the cup? Or did the cup decide to be lifted? There's a name for this. Libet called it the readiness potential. A signal, an electrical whisper in the brain that sparks before you become aware of the choice, before your hand moves, before the thought says, yes, do it now. Your neurons fire. The decision is made, and then your mind catches up like a latecomer to its own story. The man who discovered it watched brains light up milliseconds before action, like the body knew the choreography and the mind was just learning the steps. Not a conductor, but a narrator, telling the story of a song already sung. But this isn't just about lab coats and machines, it's about you. It's about that moment you said yes when you meant no. It's about the sudden anger that flooded your chest before you had time to blink. It's about the way your mouth moves before your heart understands what it's saying. You think, I chose. But maybe the choosing was always background noise. You are the echo, not the sound. And yet you feel it, the urgency, the tug of agency. Like you must be in charge. Like your life would collapse without the illusion that you're steering. Maybe that's the lie. Maybe the mind is a mask the universe wears to convince itself of control. Imagine a puppet that believes it pulls its own strings. It dances, stumbles, spins. It feels pride. It feels guilt. But all along, the hands are hidden, the strings invisible. Still, it feels real. And that feeling, it's everything. So you keep dancing, you keep choosing. Even as a quiet voice inside whispers, what if this isn't your dance at all? A man walks down a corridor he's walked 1,000 times before. He tells himself he's choosing this life, this job, this partner, this version of himself. But at night, he dreams of other corridors, ones he's never seen. And yet, in those dreams, his feet move like they remember. He wakes with a question lodged in his chest. What if I've only ever taken the paths that were already lit? Not because he lacked courage, but because those were the only doors that opened. Maybe the script was always waiting. Maybe he was never the author, just the reader. And somewhere in the silence between paragraphs, he begins to listen. To the breath before thought, to the flicker before movement, to the stillness that isn't empty but watching. And maybe that's the shift. Not from choice to fate, but from control to witnessing. Picture this: a woman stands at a train platform. The schedule is blank, no times, no destinations. Just empty tracks stretching in opposite directions. She hesitates, feels the pressure to move, to decide. A train approaches, soundless, lightless, as if made of memory. She steps forward, not because she's sure, but because her feet begin to move. And her mind, seconds later, says, I chose this, but she didn't, not really. Not in the way she was taught, not with a blueprint, a plan, a checklist of pros and cons. She moved because something in her moved, and her mind followed, like a ribbon tied to wind. This is not passivity. This is not helplessness. This is a different kind of awareness. One that doesn't shout, I control, but whispers, I witness. And here's where it starts to get strange. Because if you are not the author of your thoughts, if you are not the source of your desires, then who are you? Not the voice narrating your day, not the character reacting to the plot, but the silent, watching space in which it all unfolds. That space is not blank. It's alive, aware, and somehow deeper than your name, your past, your preferences. This is what the sages meant. Not that the self is an illusion, but that the story of the self is. The masks, the roles, the internal narrator, you were trained to confuse them for you. But peel it all away, and something remains. Still, quiet, vast, like standing in a library of forgotten languages. You can't read the books, but you feel the weight of meaning. You know, something true lives here. Call it soul. Call it awareness. Call it the unblinking eye behind the dream. It doesn't matter. What matters is this. You spent your whole life playing a part, and now something in you is asking, who wrote the script? Let's go further. Imagine a child. She's 5 years old. She reaches for a cookie, but her mother's glare stops her. That moment, a flicker of fear, of shame, etches itself into her bones. Years later, she doesn't know why she flinches when someone raises their voice. She doesn't remember the cookie, but her body does. Her decisions aren't random, they're echoes. Not from logic, but from conditioning. Not from freedom, but from survival. Every choice she makes carries fingerprints she never placed. Her favorite color, the way she folds her hands, the people she's drawn to, all of it, shaped by silent scripts she didn't write. She thinks she's choosing, but really she's remembering, reacting, reliving, and in that realization, something breaks open. Because if you can see the script, you can stop acting, not by doing something different, but by noticing, by becoming the watcher, not the actor. The forest doesn't need you to choose a path. The forest wants you to see the paths, to marvel, to be present. There's an old Taoist saying, the Tao does nothing, and yet nothing is left undone. It means this: true action flows from alignment, not effort. The river does not decide its path, but it carves canyons. The sun does not plan its rising, but it warms the world. So maybe your life isn't about choosing better. Maybe it's about seeing more clearly, feeling the impulse rise and not clinging, letting it move through you like wind through leaves, letting it go. And in that letting go, discovering something you never expected: peace. Let's return to the man from earlier, the one who flinches at car horns and says, I'm good, even when he isn't. He begins to notice, not change, just notice. He's brushing his teeth one morning and suddenly the motion feels strange. Like watching a stranger's hand move. He doesn't stop, but his mind opens a crack, a flicker of distance. Who is doing this? Later, he laughs at a joke he doesn't find funny. And instead of letting it slide, he watches the laugh echo out of him. It feels hollow, like an echo bouncing off a memory. That evening, he walks home under orange street lamps, and something in his chest says, "Turn left." There's no reason to, but he does. And down that side street, under an old tree, he finds silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of pretending. He doesn't feel free, but for the first time, he doesn't feel fake either. That's when it begins, the watching. He sees his anger rise in an argument and doesn't grab it. He feels envy tighten in his stomach and lets it soften. He notices the voice in his head scripting clever responses, apologies, plans, but he doesn't speak them. He just listens, and slowly something shifts. The world doesn't bend. His problems don't vanish, but they lose their grip because he's not trapped in the role anymore. He's backstage, watching the play. Here's what modern psychology rarely tells you. Awareness alone is transformative. Not because it fixes anything, but because it reframes the game. Think of it like a spotlight in a dark theater. Wherever it shines, something becomes visible. Not changed, not improved, just seen. And the moment something is seen clearly, it loses its power to deceive. That's what witnessing does. It dissolves illusion. The illusion that you are your thoughts. The illusion that you must believe every story your brain tells. The illusion that you must always be someone, even when that someone is hurting you. Now, I want you to imagine this. There's a monk in exile, high in the mountains, surrounded by snow. He sits with no mirror, no audience, no need to be anything. And yet, every morning, he bows to the rising sun, not because he believes in ritual, but because he remembers even the light is not his doing. He watches the snow fall. He watches thoughts come and go. He watches pain in his knee, hunger, longing, all of it passing like weather. He does not resist it. He does not cling. He simply remains, and that not some grand insight is his awakening. Not enlightenment as ecstasy, but as endurance, stillness, seeing. Because here's the deepest crack of all. You've been taught that truth lives in control, in mastery, in optimization, in choosing well. But what if truth lives in surrender, not to fate, not to powerlessness, but to what already is, to the current already flowing through you, to the thought already forming, to the impulse already lit. You don't choose these things, you receive them. And when you stop pretending to be the author, something incredible happens. You begin to hear the story, not your story, the story. The one whispered in dreams, in wind, in déjà vu. The story that has no words, only resonance. Only ache. And maybe that ache you feel when a song hits too deep, or a stranger's glance holds something familiar, or a childhood smell shatters you for no reason. Maybe that ache is you, the real you, not the thinker, not the planner, not the brand, but the ache, the openness, the unspeakable awareness that's been here the whole time, watching, waiting, willing to meet the world exactly as it is. You wake again, same room, same window, but the air feels thinner, like it remembers something you haven't caught up to yet. The mirror is still there, but today it doesn't reflect you. It just holds you, not your face, not your name, just the shape of watching. You don't reach for answers anymore, not like you used to. You let the questions hang, fogged and breathing like ghosts on glass. Maybe this is what it means to wake up, not to find new truths, but to finally stop lying to yourself with old ones. That you were ever oneself, that you were ever in control. That all of this wasn't already blooming before you noticed it. There's no grand revelation, no curtain to pull, just this breath. This moment, this seeing. You are not the author. You are the silence between the lines. And somehow, that is more than enough. So the next time you feel the tug, that anxious urge to fix, to know, to shape, pause, notice. There is a strange kind of peace in surrender, not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of pretending. And in that quiet surrender, something opens. Not a door, not a truth, but a space. And in that space, you'll find not who you are, but the watcher who was there long before the question, long before the mirror, long before the lie, just waiting, just noticing, just you. But before you go answer, if you can, who is asking this question right now? If a choice is made without you choosing it, is it still yours? And if the voice in your head isn't you, then who's listening?
Until next time, stay curious, stay unsettled. LibCurio never closes, and the next chapter awaits.